Good evening and welcome to this live coverage, which is coming to you live from the Tom Mboya College, Labour College in the county of Kisumu. My name is Dan Mwangi on this Nation Leadership Forum that is all about health and safety at the workplace. And I mean, what better place to have it than in a Labour College? And not only that, but on the eve of a day that is significant to the Labour movement, and again on the eve of a week that begins with a significant day, which is Labour Day, which is next week on Monday. And we're having a conversation around that with the ILO having made some significant decisions in regards to health and safety at the workplace, and now we'll be having some good interactions here, valuable ones, with my panel here to just give us some good sense of what exactly this is about and how it plays out. And I have my panel ready to take this on, and I'll begin introducing them right from the gentleman closest to me. We have Dr. Andrew Muruka, who is the Director of Occupational Safety and Health Services. He's also the head of Work Injury Benefit Administration, that's WIBA. Next to him, we have Madam Caroline Ruto, who is the second Assistant Secretary, the Central Organization of Trade Unions, COTU. Then we have a gentleman who is not new to our screens, that is Dr. Musa Nyandusi, who is the Secretary, Occupational Safety and Health in the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health Services, or DOSH. Next to him, we have Mr. Stephen Obiro, who is the Head of Advocacy, Consulting and Partnerships at the Federation of Kenya Employers, FKE. And last but definitely not least is Madam Irene Karanja, who is the Director of Occupational Safety and Administration, Director of Occupational Safety and Health Services, and she's in charge of OSH administration. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of this panel. And just to get us going, the International Labour Organization, that's ILO, it made the inclusion of occupational safety and health a fundamental principle and right at work. That is something that has really informed a lot of the latest discourse in regards to the labour space. So I'll begin with you, Dr. Nyandusi. What's the importance of this? What does this mean when we have this declaration and, position by the ILO?
Kenya is a country of good standing in the International Labour Organization. We are a member of good standing. And last year, the International Labour Organization declared safety and health as a fundamental principle and right in the workplace. Before 2022, the last time the International Labour Organization considered fundamental principles and rights was in 1998, which is almost 23 years before. And that's the time when they looked at the freedom of association, child labor, avoidance of trafficking, as well as the principle of fair remuneration for fair work. And in 2022, they included occupational safety and health as a principle, as a fundamental principle and right at work, and also considered the conventions of OSH, the Convention 155 and Convention 187, as well to become fundamental conventions. What this means is that as a country of good standing in the ILO, the expectation is that we should deepen the culture of embracing safety and health in the workplace, and put resources, the required resources, towards instituting it as a fundamental right and principle at work.
All right, and I want to come to the trade unionist. That is Madam Caroline Ruto. The same declaration where we are saying that we are looking at inclusion of occupational safety and health as a fundamental principle and right at work. How does that sit for the employees? Is it something that is maybe a bit late? Because you could imagine that this is something that is such a fundamental thing, it seems to be, but was only given this kind of prominence last year.
Thank you so much. This is something that has been long awaited, and I think it is timely. And as trade unions, we really welcome the decision, and we are actually very happy because it's going to support the existing documents that are in place. So this is most welcome.
All right, thank you very much. And when we talk about the need for this kind of acknowledgement, I feel there's need for us to have a connection between what is the policy space and for the workers. As you know, the SecGen at KOTU call them workers. Like, how do we connect this kind of policy or pronouncements or positions by the ILO, for instance, to be tangible to the common mwananchi who's a worker? I just want to stay with you for a bit there.
Thank you so much. Now, when we talk of Kenya, Kenya is one of the member states of the ILO. And that's why all the documents that are in the ILO is considered to be very fundamental to us as trade unions. Now, when it comes to the instruments that I was talking about, remember the Article 41 in the new constitution. I don't know how new is new, because we've been talking of the new constitution. So the Constitution of Kenya, I say it is new because there is no other that has come up apart from the constitution that we have. So this constitution is talking of the work environment that is good for the workers. So when we talk of this safety and health and as a fundamental right, so this one is going to enforce we have the work injury and benefit. We have an act. We also have the DOSH, the act, and also together with that constitution. So this one now is going to give us a very big backup on the same.
Okay, I want to come to the other lady on the panel, Madam Irene Karanja. And for you, who is in charge of Director of Occupational Safety and Health Services, and specifically in charge of the administration, what does this mean from where you sit? Share the mic with Bwana Stephen.
As the head of Occupational Safety and Health Administration, what it means is that the OSHA administration at DOSH, we have a number of officers, about 200 of us, who have to put this into implementation. The fact that safe and healthy working condition is now a fundamental right. What we need to do is to take all that we have been doing all these years. This is the inspections we do at workplaces for purposes of preventing accidents, the accident investigations, everything that we do, the way we look at the workplaces and survey the workplaces in terms of issues of, take for example, plant examinations. What happens right now is that we have to up our game. What we want to do is to make sure that we reach each and every worker, because now it is his right. It has been made his right as of 22nd of June last year. We might not have been covering all the workers. We have not been getting that coverage all the way. So what we'll start doing now is to make sure that we are able to get to each and every worker. Done.
All right, and we'll pick that up in a bit, because I still feel there's a lot more we can exhaust there, because you've said, as we talk about upping our game, I want to just come to the employer, you know, the representative of the employers, that is Bwana Stephen Obiro from the Federation of Kenya Employers. So we've heard from the government, we've heard from the labor unions. As the employer, how does this play out for you? What's the impact on the employer?
Let's start first of all by understanding what it means to declare it a fundamental right or a principle at work and a fundamental convention. What it means is that the member state, whether you have ratified that convention or not, then you become bound to it so that you are able to promote what that convention seeks to understand. And it also places an obligation to ILO to ensure that resources are available, mobilizes resources to help the constituents, the members, to be able to promote the rights. Now, what it means for us at workplaces, the employers and every employer always looks for a day where you can open your workplace, you get your workers come in, and they work and they go home to their families safe. You also look for that time where your worker can work for you for the whole of their life, and they retire and they go and enjoy their life after retirement. Now, for us, what this means to us is that we are going to have to work together like we have been doing, but now more because we have an obligation to report as a country, together with other partners, with DOSH, with the Ministry of Labor, with KOTU, to ensure that then we promote these fundamental rights at workplace. We build our workplaces, we work together this journey so that then our workplaces can be safe for our workers. Now, the other thing that declaration means, it is placing obligation. You know, we are looking at the right which should be consumed and which we should be able to promote, but it also places obligations among all the stakeholders that are involved to ensure that then we are able to build our country in such a way that we assure these rights. Now, in the convention, it is expected that this will do in good faith. And so we are looking at working with all partners to ensure that we do promote these fundamental rights in good faith among our workplaces, to work together to build where we feel there are gaps in the workplaces, to work together so that we can build these workplaces to be able to give these rights to the workers, and where we feel there is a gap in policy, to be able to work together through social dialogue, to be able to put together the policy that will support all these initiatives.
All right, thank you very much. And again, there's a lot that you can unpack in all this, and we shall be getting to that. I want to bring in Dr. Muruka, who is the head of the Work Injury Benefits Administration. What does this declaration mean for compensation for injuries of workers? Does it change anything, or are we still where we were?
Thank you, Dan. I think the declaration of a safe and healthy work environment as a fundamental principle and right at work now requires every person or every stakeholder to refocus their attention on three key issues. The first important issue is to refocus on the aspect of risk assessment. We must have a united front to address the issue of occupational safety and health risks as a united family, so that everyone takes that risk assessment as personal responsibility. The second aspect that will be important for everyone will be the issue of safety and health audits, which include all types of audits, including air quality monitoring, just trying to understand the various aspects of the workplace that can cause harm, and putting in place an action plan to remedy the situation. So everyone will be required actually to ensure that their main obligation at work is to prevent injury from occurring, because when they occur, then they must be compensated. So I think it will refocus our minds on the compensation system and how to make it simple, clear, transparent, and without any source of delay for the workers. Because if we delay the process of compensation, then that means that we are denying workers their rights. So that's a very important aspect that people will need now to focus on, those three. And of course, job safety analysis. Everybody will now be thinking about how to ensure that every job or task is safe before you actually undertake it. And that means that at some point in time, workers should be able to have a right to refuse to undertake any activity that might expose them to harm and, require the next process of compensation.
All right. Thank you very much. And Dr. Nyandusi, all this sounds nice and very, let's say, good on paper in some way, you know. When you talk about it's a declaration which we are having to adopt, etc. When we think about the majority of our workforce is in the informal sector, and there's a lot of susceptibility to some form of injury at work, do we have what it takes to actually compensate and actually follow up and make sure that everybody who is due or is entitled to a certain compensation actually gets it?
Thank you, Dan. The informal sector in Kenya, as in a lot of developing countries, forms a critical labor mass for the economy. In Kenya, it's estimated at anything between 83 and in some places goes as high as 89% of the labor market. And this is an important pool on which we have to give considerations on the issues of safety and health, because this is actually where a majority of safety and health issues are. That's where you'll get most accidents and even a lot of occupational diseases. The passage by the International Labour Organization, the safety and health as a fundamental principle and right, gives us the opportunity to actually look at this sector afresh and find new and creative ways in which we can interact with this sector to ensure the delivery of government services, including the issue of safety and health. The government has currently adopted the bottom-up transformation agenda, what we call the BWETA. And in this bottom-up transformation, economic transformation agenda, the persons at the bottom, there's a lot of government resources that we are going to direct towards the bottom of the pyramid. And this bottom of the pyramid forms a substantial chunk of the informal, the so-called informal sector. Through working with the Ministry of Cooperatives and Micro and Small Enterprises, in the groupings that they are going to have organized, the economic groupings and, you know, savings and credit cooperatives and community organizations that they are going to have organized the informal sector in, we intend to take that opportunity to begin providing some of the safety and health information that is required in this specific group. We have already begun this process, and this year we have had an engagement of the informal sector in Kisumu. We've also had an engagement with the informal sector in Eldoret. We've had a similar engagement with the informal sector in Nairobi as well as in Kilifi, and we are going to continue expanding this on an ongoing basis until we reach as widely as possible. Of course, it will require a huge investment in resources, and the government is committed to putting as much of the resources in there as possible. And I would like to thank the International Labour Organization, which has also come out quite strongly to support us in this instance in terms of development of information booklets and infomercials and documentaries which are going to be useful towards imparting the knowledge on safety and health in the workplace. We shall not leave the informal sector behind, even as we seek to formalize it and begin participating in the formal economy as a formal enterprise. Remember, even in Switzerland, we enjoy wearing Swiss watches. We must always remind ourselves that at some point there were an informal sector where people used to make watches in their cottages during winter. But today, they are some of the biggest billion-dollar industries that are there in the world.
All right, and Carol, I want to just come to you, just piggybacking on that question. We talk about the informal sector, which constitutes a huge percentage of the workforce. With all the apparent praise from the labor sector to this declaration, are we saying that before it was, we barely had people benefiting from compensation when they had injury at work?
Thank you so much, Dan. I think first of all, I want to pick from where my sister Irene was just talked about having 200 officers. I think if you consider the number of industries or the number of workplaces that we have in Kenya is more than, and you can attest that the 200 officers who are in place is totally very low number. And I don't think whether they'll cover and get all the details that is required. So that is something that needs to be seen or to be noted. And again, you talked of the informal sector. I think I can allude to what Daktari was saying, that the informal sector is covering almost 80 and above %. And those are the informal sector. So these people who are working in the informal sector has several challenges. I think when you look at their working condition is pathetic. That is something that, and these are the people that when they go for work, it is just about hand to mouth. So at the ILO, we normally talk of the decent work agenda, but for them, it is like bora kazi, not kazi bora. So that is now where the challenge is. So as much or unless we come together as a tripartite, that is the government, the workers, and the employers, so that we look at these fundamental rights at all places of work. Because when we talk of workers, we are talking of every person. And even the government, they are also workers. When you talk of the employers, they are also workers. So we want to see an environment that each and every person, each and every human being is catered for. Yes.
All right, thank you. And Daktari, I think it's a very solid point that has been raised when we say we have 200 officers. For the sake of context, what would be the ideal number of officers that you would need to have an effective system working?
Well, I'll answer that question indirectly. We estimate that we have approximately 140,000 workplaces in Kenya. That is a fair, lower estimate of former workplaces that are there. And you would hope that every officer should be able to comfortably get to maybe 500 workplaces in a year. So obviously, if you do the mathematics, even if you gave me 10 times that number, I would safely be able to absorb them and keep them quite busy. Having said that, we live in an age of technology, and we are hoping to leverage heavily on technology in reaching the workplaces, as well as other creative ways that we've been reaching the workplaces through people we call competent persons who work on whom we register and license to reach the workplace on our behalf. But the reach into the workplace is obviously going to be improved through technology so that we are able to register these workplaces, to bring them into the purview of the Department of Occupational Safety and Health, to be able to reach out and be able to upload a lot of the reports on accident reports, fatality reports on an online basis, so that the actual follow-up, physical follow-up, can be minimized. But even as we minimize it, we obviously require a huge number of officers. This year we are at a better place than we were last year. No, the year before we were better place than we were the year before, because we got an injection of 86 officers into the department. It doesn't look like much. We are still discussing with the Public Service Commission and the national and the leadership of the nation in terms of increasing these numbers, and it's something which we hope we are going to have a continued discussion about in terms of increasing the same. In terms of resources, budgeting, human capacity, training, it's a conversation that we really need to keep going.
All right, and it's one that I think is important in light of the percentage of those who are at the bottom of the pyramid and the whole bottom-up agenda that the government, has put out as blueprint. We'll take a short break on this National Leadership Forum conversation on health and safety at the workplace. We'll be back after this with more conversations from the good panelists we have here, so don't go too far.
Apply today and join our May 2023 intake. For more information, call us on 0701 079 406 or 0728 669 000. We have campuses in Limuru, Nairobi and Nakuru. St. Paul's University, your university of choice.
Mtoi amepewa 3 days alipe school fees. Gadhani mara ngapi nimekuambia tupeleke mtoi shule ya gava na utaki kunisikiza. Unainsist hapo mpeleke shule ya private na hata hauna pesa. Shika.
start your life here.
It's not enough for me. It's just not enough.
You don't know what they do to girls like you.
I think it's Avina. Cindy. That's her name.
Sorry, who is your father?
That's a couple bell. I'd had another family. Another wife.
At DTB, your dreams are our calling. If you're running a biz like Louise, get the fuel to go further with DTB's Asset Finance. For sunrise to sunset guys like Alex, we've got your back with extended banking hours. Are you like Sheila? Her online and offline payments are never on the line, because all transactions with DTB are secure. Being like Annette, who has safety nets, means you can bank from anywhere, at any time. Achieving more for you is the least we can do. Because at Diamond Trust Bank, you don't just bank with us, you bank on us.
You're going to take the oxtail and then you're going to brown it.
Welcome back to this live discussion from the county of Kisumu, where we're talking about the implication of, to the Kenyan worker of the ILO Declaration of Safe and Healthy Work Environment as a fundamental right. And before we went for the break, we'd had some good insights from the panelists here on the same. And we keep going with it. And I want to come to, I think it's a question that we don't necessarily have to have one person responding to. And one of the things is about implementation of this. Daktari had partly touched on it as well as Madam Caroline in regards to the capacity. Maybe we don't hear from the employers. When it comes to implementing, do you feel that the employers have done enough to ensure that where there is need for compensation, it's actually done?
If you look at the journey that we have traveled as a country and as workplaces, you will realize that we have made a lot of progress, but still there is room for improvement. We still have challenges, we still have gaps that we can keep on working together as partners to be able to reach the desired level of implementation that we are desiring. The Federation of Kenya Employers has always continue to work with employers to build their capacity on the ensuring that their workplaces are safe. And many of the employers and the workplaces in the formal sector have put together even the committees on OSH, and they are implementing a number of initiatives that are geared towards ensuring the workplaces are safe. And so what needs to be done is to identify those areas that are still having gaps. For example, where we don't have the capacity, and as Dr. has said, how do we leverage on technology? And more so, how do we promote the system of self-assessment, self-evaluation, taking responsibility yourself as an employer and as a worker to be able to promote a safe working environment at the workplace. Now, we know that what is in the conventions, the rights, you cannot attain them overnight. Even the countries which we admire, those ones that we admire the systems they have, they are still building their capacities, they are still working on certain areas. So we as the employers in Kenya and the Kenyan family, how do we work together to ensure that we are constantly making progress? If there are institutions or workplaces that are in the informal sector and we are seeing a challenge, how do we then support these workplaces so that they can improve on their capacities to be able to implement or to promote certain these fundamental rights? If there are formal workplaces and we identify some gaps, how do we work with these workplaces to ensure that then the fundamental rights of health are promoted? So it is very important that we work together and be able to address the gaps that are there.
All right. Madam Karanja, I just want to come back to you because for you, when it comes to the administration of these policies, one of the things you talked about, which has partly been addressed by Dr. Nyandusi and Madam Caroline, is the capacity in terms of the number of people. Do you feel that beyond this number, that if, for example, you are told we are going to hire another 2,000 people, do we have enough people who have the relevant training to be able to take up that kind of job? Because one thing is the availability, but the other thing is the equipping. Do we have enough people who can do it?
Currently in Kenya, Dana, we are trying to make sure that we get the skilled workforce for occupational safety and health. And we did this by partnering with the University, JKUAT in specific at the beginning. And now other universities have joined to train students on occupational safety and health so that we can get these people in the world of work. But even with the capacity that we have at DOSH, we are actually supplementing it with already those who have gained these skills from elsewhere, whether it is from outside colleges or doing international courses on occupational safety and health, but are private persons. And what we have done, we have sort of approved them to be doing some of the activities that we need to be undertaking as OSH officers. These include activities like occupational safety and health auditing at workplaces. We have fire safety auditors. We have designated health practitioners who are doctors who medically examine workers. We also have air quality monitors that actually go out there and survey on air quality monitoring what it is that if there are any hazards that are in the workplace, they are measured, they are surveyed, and the results actually help now the rest of us to be able to put in place mitigation measures. So we actually are supplemented by quite a big number. On top of those approved individuals, we also have training institutions, because one of the issues we have found with the workers is the low awareness on occupational safety and health. You find that not many people, not many employees know of their rights on occupational safety and health, or even that they are being exposed to hazards in the workplace, because this is the beginning of everything. Because if you don't know that a certain chemical can harm you, then you will not do anything to stop it from getting exposed to it. So what we have done is that we try to train workers. We have come up with a training curriculum for the safety and health committees at work. We also have another one on first aid for the first aiders, because we need them in case workers get injured. Somebody needs to take care of them immediately. And we also have on fire safety training, so that in case of a fire, in the event of fire, then they have a group of people at work who can be able to prevent or at least deal with the fire in the workplace. So we have these trainers who we have approved, and together with us, we are able to reach quite a big number of employees together with the employers, so that at least we can see if we can improve the standard of at the workplace on safety and health.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Muruka, a lot of the issues that we hear here are partly pegged on people not understanding. And like Madam has just said, that there's an element of people not being as aware of what the occupational health and safety dynamics include. Maybe just give us a clear picture of, for instance, when someone gets an injury while at the workplace, by the time they get compensation, what is that process? What do I as the employee who's been injured need to do? What does the employer need to do so that we can get to the place of compensation?
Thank you, Dan. The process of compensation starts with reporting. So the first thing that has to be done is that the injured employee has to report to their immediate supervisors. And once that is done, well, I'm assuming that the injured employee will be alive. If they are not alive, then their employers or their immediate supervisors should be able to take up the reporting. And the first report, as I've said, goes to the supervisor. So the supervisor, the Work Injury Benefits Act recognizes supervisors as the employers themselves. So the employer is required to fill DOSH 1. DOSH 1 is publicly available on the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection website. Once that form is filled, this person concurrently is required to get first aid, get medical treatment, and once they are fully treated, they are supposed to undergo medical assessment. And that medical assessment should determine whether there is any disability, either temporary or permanent, that the employee has suffered. And if there is temporary disability, then the officer, the occupational safety and health officer, is required to compute the necessary amounts based on the duration of disability. And if it is a permanent disability, including death, which is 100%, then they also do the same. They compute the amount due and generate DOSH Waiver 4. DOSH Waiver 4 is considered to be the decision of the Director of Work Injury Benefits Administration. So that decision is transmitted to the employer. And the employer is required to pay within 90 days. If the employer is not willing to agree or does not agree with that decision of the Director of Work Injury Benefits, he has 60 days from the date on DOSH Waiver 4 to make an official objection. And an official objection is made based on a prescribed format. And we have DOSH Waiver 12. DOSH Waiver 12 is also available on the Ministry of Labor website. They can make that objection within that 60 days. Now, if there is an objection within 60 days, then the director has to deal with it within 14 days and either uphold this decision or vary. In case they vary, of course, they restart the process of counting the 90 days. After that, if any party does not agree with that decision after the appeal, then they can only go to the Employment and Labor Relations Court for remedy. Now, if there is no appeal in between, and everyone agrees with the process, the amounts, the names of the people that have been proposed for payment, and the percent disability, including temporary disability, then the payment must be made within 90 days. If it is not made within 90 days, it is a contravention of the Work Injury Benefits Act. And they can be prosecuted, the employer can be prosecuted if they are not able to pay within 90 days. And when it goes to the court, of course, we leave it to the court to decide what happens.
So in the event that there is no, the flow of the process is not interrupted by either an objection or otherwise, how long would it take between the time when I report to my supervisor until the point where I get my compensation? Ideally, how long should it take if there is no interruption?
Thank you. The process, the number of days is best calculated when you start from the decision based on Doshuba 4, because that is prescribed 90 days. Before that time, you can report, but you are not yet healed. So it will take a long time or a short time for you to heal. We don't know how long it will take for you to heal. So that will also determine when DOSH 4 will be generated. So DOSH 4 will not be generated before an employee is fully healed and the doctor has certified that this person is now fully healed. He can now undergo assessment for disability.
At what point do you then decide that, because if it was, I broke my leg, I'm now off crutches, etc. What if it is one of those that they then really have a definite timeline? You know, for example, if I broke my leg, I'll be told within 6 weeks you should be better off, and within another 4 weeks you'll be good to go. What happens to those? Is it almost like an indefinite wait for that compensation to actually come, which is money I'm hoping I can use for the same treatment?
Now, thank you very much, Dan. I think, let me demystify one of the aspects of compensation. And that is, if you get injured and you get first aid, that is part and parcel of compensation. If you get medical treatment, that is compensation. But if now you want to get the actual cash check to your account, that is also compensation. But that one must be dependent on whether you have healed or not. The doctor has to certify that this person has actually healed. This is the maximum level of healing that he can attain with this kind of injury, and therefore we stop the treatment at this point. Yeah.
All right. And we won't take a short break, but just before we step into it, I want to ask you, Caroline, just briefly, based on this, and you can see that one of the things that the ministry has experienced is when people don't understand this process, it becomes about, is somebody eating our money? Is somebody refusing to pay us? So for you as the union, what do you do to ensure that your members are informed so that there's no undue uproar because there's an ongoing process as set in law?
Thank you so much, Dan. I think when you heard of all the panelists who are here talking, is like we are very good. I love my country so much. This is one of the countries that the laws are so much, but the only challenge that we have is implementation. That is the tricky part of it. Now, when you heard even from the onset on the issue of the inspectors, and you also allow me to take you aback on the issue of the workplace. I heard Daktari talk of around 140, and that is why it is being divided among the 200 inspectors that are there. Now, if you hear of 140, I don't think that is a figure, or unless there is a different definition of a workplace. Because when you talk of a workplace, according to the ILO definition, is not a structure. It is where an employee works, be it in the field or in the industry. So for this one, if you are talking of 140, I don't think every workplace has been captured.
So in your estimation, what should the right figure be if not 140,000?
Oh, it's more than 1,000. More than 1,000.
More than?
140,000.
140,000
140,000. And imagine comparing with 200.
Which is about
way below,
700 times.
Way below. This one, there is no capacity. And I think the way what I was saying about the laws that we have in the country is that let's not only have the laws just for the sake of having it. Let's make use of it. And the only people who can work together is the tripartite, the employer, the worker, and the government. But the challenges that we are facing is a lot. Maybe that one will come to it later. Now, maybe to answer the question on the compensation, I think you heard Daktari talk of the 60 days, the 90 days, the blah, blah. I think to us, that is, the process is so tedious. It is tedious looking at what we were also talking of the informal sector being the 80%. So how many of these employees are aware of the process. And that is why you find people not even going to report the same, because they know they will not go anywhere. And even the compensation, for you to be compensated, maybe you'll have followed for almost a year, 2 or 3 years. And not because they don't want to compensate, but because of the capacity that they have.
So that's what I was asking for you as COTU, for instance. What do you do to sensitize your members? Even the law may not change as soon as we want, or the process, just to sensitize them on the process.
Thank you, Dan. So what we are doing as COTU is that we have, first of all, we have the collective bargaining agreements, that is the CBS. So the respective, all the affiliates of COTU, who are 49 affiliates that we have in COTU, and each and every affiliate have that inclusion in the CBA on how to go about it. And at the same time, the employers in these industries also have what we call the safety committees, who are there to sensitize and also to give education to members that whenever such kind of a thing happens, they must report.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We take a short break on this live broadcast as we are discussing the issues around safety and health at the workplace ahead of the 2023 World Day for Safety at the Workplace. We'll be back with a lot more, and a topic that is a reality now, but is not really being addressed, if you ask me, which is mental health. Take a short break. We'll be back after this.
We partner with communities across all 47 counties by advancing education, by enhancing healthcare, by supporting economic opportunities. Because when we unite, there's nothing we can't do.
My baby is famous for her happy dancing moves because she's always happy. What's the reason for this happiness? Molfix dryness. It's what all mothers dream of. Come on, mothers, try Molfix baby diapers and be part of our happiness movement.
I trust Sunlight 2-in-1 washing powder to give my clothes a sensational clean and an uplifting fragrance.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sunlight. More than you expect.
Did this man attack you? Yes, he did. But if I say that, I'll have to tell them the whole truth. It's not him.
All materials for the next episode of My Castle Show are there. I don't want you to see them in advance.
Life ina move fast, una hustle, una work hard. Na ukifika home, it's the place you can just be na DSTV family. Na feel the drama with captivating novellas. Na feel the joy. Na feel home with DSTV family.
Own your dream home for as low as 1.98 million Kenya shillings in Vipingo Kilifi. SMS Vipingo to 22365 or call us today on 0740 400 215. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to the National Leadership Forum with this high-level discussion on the matters of work and safety and safety at the workplace, I should say. And Dr. Nyandusi, I want to come to you, and I think this is one that I would really appreciate if across the board we mention about it. When you look at the discussions and you look at even the law itself, a lot of what we're talking about injury at the workplace is largely physical, where you're hearing about somebody, a chemical burnt someone, you inhaled something, a machine fell on me and broke my leg. It's a lot of physical. But we're in a space where we are seeing a lot of issues to do with mental health, and sometimes the mental illnesses is being triggered by the workplace. Daktari, is it that the law we have is outdated? The law has not yet met COVID-19, where it reset almost everything.
I think that's a very pertinent question. I want to take you back a bit. We indicated that the ILO adopted the safety and health as a fundamental workers' right, principle and right at work. At the level of the ILC, this declaration is made in the spirit of tripartism. The government is involved at that level. Member governments are involved. Member worker organizations are involved. Member employer organizations are also involved. In bringing it into the country, the same spirit of tripartism is adopted. And in this spirit of tripartism, every country is required to have an organ that encourages tripartism in OSH. And in the country, we have the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health, which has a tripartite composition, what we call tripartite plus. It has government, it has workers, and it has most representative employers, and also has other agencies that are supposed to give it more impetus: the National Bureau of Statistics, the National Environment Authority, Education, Health, and all those other institutions. Now, it is therefore envisaged that the legislations and policies that are adopted are therefore those that are absolutely relevant and implementable in the setting in which you are. In 2010, the International Labour Organization expanded the list of what they consider occupational diseases and included mental illness as possibly occupational. But there's a different view of looking at the worker only from the prism of him being in the workplace and looking at the worker more holistically, understanding that whatever happens wherever this worker is likely to have an impact on this worker when he's in the workplace. So that, for instance, if he or she is having difficulties at home, of course, the safety profiles of this worker should become an issue. If you're a driver and last night you probably had a fight at home, your safety profiles would obviously have an issue. If you have a problem of alcohol usage, your safety profile comes into you. So the view of the worker on a more holistic level is a new way of looking at the worker rather than thinking exclusively only of the workplace. And when you look at the worker holistically, the programs thereafter that are developed view this worker including both his mental health, his physical health, the diseases and illnesses that he can have that are not necessarily occupational as important contributors to this person's productivity as well as his ability to maintain the safety and health standards that are envisaged in the workplace. So we are encouraging workplaces to, within the safety and health policies, to actually have mental health as a big output of the safety and health policies, and if possible, to actually have a standalone policy on mental health, and deepen that with the other issues. We also have another epidemic of non-communicable diseases, the hypertension, the diabetes, and the others, which I think have become a pandemic in our time. And look at this person holistically, so that there are programs. We have both what we call on-site and off-site programs for all this, so that if, for example, you're doing a wellness screening and you run a questionnaire that indicates that this person has high stress levels, you should have a means of referring this person for assistance within the health system. This is possible mostly in formal workplaces, which have adopted this. Obviously, the same question of the informal workplaces and what happens still is the same question that we have with the other issues of safety and health. So in the formal workplaces, we encourage people to develop these policies, be deliberate about it. Identification of people, it can be self-volunteered or volunteered by a worker into a program that can be off-site out of the workplace or on-site within the workplace. Of course, a lot of workers prefer to have assistance that is away from the workplace for obvious reasons of confidentiality, but to create a mechanism that allows this person to get help and to be able to be reintegrated back into the workplace. I think the important thing is to be more deliberate about it and more purposeful towards it.
All right. Mr. Obiro, as the representative of employers, when I listen to Dr. here, he does make a good argument that, you know, a metal rod falling and breaking my leg, it's just that. It is not something that has any influence from home. You know, it's different from mental health, which is, you know, a collection of, you know, a sum total of different elements. So from where you sit, how then should it be addressed? Is it that employers should be given an obligation to meet some of the costs, because it may not be the full cost, for instance, in some cases, to ensure that the mental impact, the negative mental impact arising from the job, the injury we get from the job on the mental health is addressed? Because it sounds like from the law you can't really still tell where it lies, because it's a combination of home otherwise. So what do you feel about this?
I'll talk of three things. One is that as a country, we need to change our mindset of where we look as the employer as a source of money to take care of all the challenges we have. Where whenever we meet a challenge, we say, let the employer pay for this challenge. And it's a simplistic way of looking at things, but it is not the way things should be done. Because if, as rightly Dr. has said, when you look at the issues of mental health, is a complex issue that should be looked at in that. And if we have to address it, if we have to support this employee, then we need to look at it holistically, so that then the environment that this employee is in, whether at workplace or outside the workplace, is conducive for his mental development, including the kind of education and curriculum that we have in the country, and even the family values and support that is there. The second thing, if you look at the employers, we have gone ahead, and if you look at most of the covers that we have and most of the programs that we run include the wellness program, the counseling program at workplaces, just to ensure that it takes care of these issues that are emerging. As the employers, beyond after the outbreak of COVID and mental health issues coming at more and more pronounced, we are looking at it as an emerging challenge. And how we work in the labor sector, when you have an emerging challenge, it calls for the policymakers, for the tripartite partners to come together, have a social dialogue, a conversation on what is the best way for us as a country, for us as a society, to be able to address these issues that we are facing. And that's how we as the Federation want to look at it, such that we allow the employers to do the interventions where they can, but knowing that this is a complex issue that goes beyond the workplace, and also the country to take that responsibility to come together, have comprehensive programs that can support both the worker and other members of the society on these issues of the mental health. But saying that, okay, let's decide as a country, the employer should be able to contribute a certain percentage of money to take care of mental health, is not the right way for us to go about it.
I want to bring in Caroline from the other side. We've heard from the employers, not the workers. He argues that looking to the employer as the source of sorting out our issues, so to speak, could be a simplistic way of looking at it. Some would argue that it was in the workplace that I got this, or this injury was contributed to. What's your position on that?
Thank you so much, Dan. I think when we talk of the mental health, this is one of the aspects that is we are sitting on a time bomb when you talk of this. I know all of us knows that we are in tough economic times, and some of this mental illness is as a result of what is happening in the country. The other day we heard of some government officials who are not paid in time, and those are some of the things that can trigger even the mental health. And I want to be very categorical on one of the companies that is in a good company that I can give as an example, that the union in the company together with the management are working together to address the issue of the mental illness and wellness. And this has gone a long way, and most of the challenges have come out. If you look at what is happening in the company, is that they've just come to reveal that as much as we are talking of these injuries at our workplace, there are these what we call also occupational diseases. And my brother can attest that as an employer, this is something that they need to take up, because even employee will complain that the occupational diseases that they have is as a result of contracting it at the workplace. So if we say it is not the source, even alcoholism, that is another thing also that is coming up to be like it's a threat at the workplace. But the only disadvantage thing that we are talking about is that we are only talking of the formal economy. What about the informal, the one that we are talking of, the 80%? So I think this is now where the government has to come in handy and give a budgetary allocation on the same, so that when we are working as a tripartite, as the workers, employers, and the government, we do the sensitization. We can do this through even the barasas, through all these campaigns, and we can save a life. So I think it's important.
All right, and we first, before we come to the closing part of our discussion, as we still pick on the mental health one and what solutions can be put out, because we can't, put out the problem. We take a short break on this broadcast so we can have a glimpse of the news highlights, or at the 7 p.m. bulletin. We'll be back after this. Stay with us.
All transactions with DTB are secure. Achieving more for you is the least we can do. Because at Diamond Trust Bank, you don't just bank with us, you bank on us.
Hakuna feeling kama coming home to your family na DSTV Compact. Hapa unaweza feel the warmth na connection ya family time. Na feel happiness with laughter and learning. Na feel passion with juicy novellas. Na feel adrenaline with the greatest sporting action. Na feel proud with epic Kenyan stories. Na feel entertained with the latest and the greatest. Nothing beats that feeling. Na feel home with DSTV Compact.
Apply today and join our May 2023 intake. For more information, call us on 0701 079 406 or 0728 669 000. We have campuses in Limuru, Nairobi, and Nakuru. St. Paul's University, your university of choice.
Mtoi amepewa 3 days alipe school fees. Gadhani mara ngapi nimekuambia tupeleke mtoi shule ya gava na utaki kunisikiza. Unaisisa hapo mpeleke shule ya private na hata hauna pesa. Shika.
Start your life here.
It's not enough for me. It's just not enough.
You don't know what they do to girls like you.
I think it's Avina. Cindy. That's her name.
Sorry, who is your father?
That's a couple bells. I'd had another family. Another wife.
For an exclusive 3x skin effect, try Nivea Men Deep powered by Black Carbon. For 48-hour deep moisture, a fresh skin feel, and a long-lasting masculine fragrance. Make an impact with Nivea Men Deep Impact Body Lotion.
We asked Kenyan women to tell us what they look for in a lotion.
Leo tunaweka kwenye jaribio body lotion ya bei ghali na ya bei nafuu. Why pay more? Nunua Nice and Lovely body lotion. Ni bora zaidi kwa bei nafuu. Inai-transform dry skin kuwa deeply nourished na kui-smoothen.
It's just nicer and lovelier. Chagua Kenya's #1 body lotion.
The Central Organization of Trade Unions Kenya, KOTU, invites you to the Shop Stewards meeting happening this Saturday 29th of April at the KOTU headquarters at the Solidarity Building, Gikomba, Digo Road from 11 a.m. Dr. Francis Atwoli will be addressing the meeting. The event will be live on NTV, the Central Organization of Trade Unions Kenya. All workers, one voice.
For the union makes us strong.
This is NTV.
NTV Vipasho vimeletwa kwako na Diamond Trust Bank.
Yajayo katika NTV jioni.
We have arrested Pastor Ezekiel Ombok Odero of the New Prayer Center and Church.
Kasisi Ezekiel Odero atiwa mbaroni kuhusiana na uchunguzi wa madai ya vifo katika kanisa lake, huku fukua ikiendelea shakahola kwenye makaburi ya kasisi mwenzake Paul Mackenzie.
If the money that is proposed by the National Assembly is what the President is signing into law today, then what is the role of the Senate?
Rais William Ruto asaini sheria ya ugavi wa fedha kwa kaunti siku moja tu baada ya magavana kutoa makata ya siku 14, lakini amekata hela. Magavana hawajapata walichotaka.
Baba is coming with the kiwa to reduce the cost of living.
We don't expect any police interference in the peaceful procession. We want to ask our supporters and all those who will come back to welcome Baba. That is a joyous occasion. Unajua Baba akirudi kutoka safari, haujui amekubebea nini.
Kinara wa Azimio Raila Odinga anatarajiwa kurejea nchini kesho kutoka ugaibuni kisha kuandaa mkutano wa hadhara katika uwanja wa Kamukunji Kibra.
I developed interest when seeing on the televisions people posting self-defenses. First of all, I found it hard, but no pain, no gain.
Na katika jungu la spoti leo tunamwangazia chipukizi wa Nigel Waweru anaelekea kuiwakilisha Kenya Thailand kwenye mashindano ya taekwondo.
NTV Vipasho vimeletwa kwako na Diamond Trust Bank.
All transactions with DTB are secure.
Being like a net with safety nets means you can bank from anywhere at any time. Achieving more for you is the least we can do. Because at Diamond Trust Bank, you don't just bank with us, you bank on us.
Usijali chakula yako tutakutengenezea kwa ajili yako tu.
Maisha yako, mapendeleo yako. Tunukiwa na Safaricom. Chagua bei yako ya kupiga simu au data. Piga *444# au utembelee My Safaricom app upate deal poa ya kupiga simu, uongee zaidi au ubrowse zaidi.
We asked Kenyan women to tell us what they look for in a lotion.
Leo tunaweka kwenye jaribio body lotion ya bei ghali na ya bei nafuu. Why pay more? Nunua Nice and Lovely body lotion. Ni bora zaidi kwa bei nafuu. Inai-transform dry skin kuwa deeply nourished na kui-smoothen.
It's just nicer and lovelier. Chagua Kenya's #1 body lotion.
My baby is famous for her happy dancing moves because she's always happy. What's the reason for this happiness? Molfix dryness. It's what all mothers dream of. Molfix can absorb and keep the liquid locked inside up to 30 times its weight. It stays dry, does not leak, and our babies do not get rashes. Come on, mothers, Try Molfix baby diapers and be part of our happiness movement.
Oh, you're here.
Friends becoming family. Home-cooked meal. Ice-cold Coke. That's the recipe for magic. Make your mealtime more magical. Buy any participating pack. Check under the cap to get your code and stand a chance to win free food shopping for a year, plus millions in instant cash, airtime and shopping vouchers.
Gava sasa iko mkononi. eCitizen iko na karibu huduma 5,000 za Gava kama driving license, marriage certificate, business license, passport application, certificate of good conduct na zingine zaidi. Hatua ya kwanza, ingia pale ecitizen.go.ke na ufinye create an account. Hatua ya pili, chagua Kenyan Citizen alafu ufinye create an account. Hatua ya tatu, weka details zako. Hatua ya mwisho, hapa sasa utapata hizo huduma na utachagua ni gani unahitaji. Bas, si ni hivyo? eCitizen, Gava mkononi.
Own your dream home for as low as 1.98 million Kenya shillings in Vipingo Kilifi. SMS Vipingo to 22365 or call us today on 0740 400 215. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to this live discussion, this high panel discussion live on NTV, which is about the implication to the Kenyan worker of the declaration of the ILO of safe and healthy working environment being a fundamental right. And this comes ahead of the 2023 World Day for Safety and Health at Work, which is being marked tomorrow, that is Friday. And the theme this year is a safe and healthy working environment is a fundamental right. And we've touched on a couple of matters that are relevant to this discussion. Before we went for the break, we had started touching on mental health because it is one of those that is emerging but is not emerging, you know, and it's still one that evidently needs a lot more time. But as we're coming to a close, I just want to ask Dr. Muruka, just for the avoidance of doubt, when we talk about mental health and work injury benefits or compensation, is there any, you know, like allocation or any provision for the same under WIBA? Or is this entirely physical?
Thank you very much. The Work Injury Benefits Act identifies psychosocial hazards at the workplace as some of the hazards that can cause harm to workers at the workplace. As you may have heard from Secretary Osh, Dr. Nyandusi, he has mentioned the fact that mental health is a very complex issue, very complex. That complexity alone makes diagnosis of work-related mental illness another complex aspect of it all. What we know is that for ILO to include mental illness as part of the list of occupational illnesses, then it means that as a result of expert discussions through the ILO process, they were able to identify mental health and mental illness as an important workplace issue. And this is because, as much as we appreciate that it could be caused by work or task that people have been assigned, or even by supervisors as the stressors themselves, the aspect of apportioning that this portion of this person's mental illness is a result of work is the main issue. If doctors are able to identify that portion and pull it out and say, this 5% is a result of the workplace, then it is possible for us in work injury benefits to compensate that aspect. Now, the problem will be workplace or mental illness develops sometimes over a long period of time. So you are in between your home, where you have stressors at home, you are in between the transportation system, you are in between your colleagues, you are in between somewhere where you enjoy the evening, and you are at work also. So the actual place where we would say that this was the actual cause of this person's illness, if the doctors can do that, they ease my work, and I should be able to compute compensation for that particular case.
Okay, and because we're running out of time, I'd just like us to come to a close with some closing comments. So what I'll do, I will kind of like give you a direction to kind of close on. So I'll come to you, Caroline, and as you close, what are some of the things from the workers' perspective that you think need to change or need to be addressed so as to ensure that we have safety and health at the workplace, briefly?
Thank you very much. I think, Dan, one of them is we need to take the fundamental rights on occupational safety, they should comply, and also for the future of work. And at the same time, we need to also consider that now that even the informal sector, those are our brothers and sisters. And the moment they pass us on, or they have this kind of a challenge, it is still bouncing back on us. And number two is that we also need to urge the government on the main challenge is the budgetary allocation. That we need to work together with the government and the employers so that we do more sensitization to enable us not to have only the documents, but to have work in place. And maybe finally, because I know I'll not get any other time, is that as you all know that we are approaching 1st of May, which is the Workers' Day, and there is a lot that is going to come from our SG, Brother Toli. I also want to welcome all of us to attend the day, because that is our day as workers. And here, there is no employer, there is no worker, but there is no employer, there is no government. We are all workers, and it is our day. Karibuni sana, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will go to Stephen Obiro as employers. The same thing, just about from where you sit, where do you feel needs to be addressed in light of the state of health and safety at the workplace, so as to make it a better environment?
The first thing that we need to address is our mindset on how we approach it. We should approach the issues of safety at workplace as a concerted effort, where we are all able to come together with a mindset of what can we do better. What can we work together then to improve the workplaces? Sometimes the mindset we have is looking at the employer, this employer, but if we can be able to work together as a government, as the employers, and as workers to improve our workplaces, I recommend we take the Nordic model. The Nordic model of engagement is we are not in competition, but we are there to work together to improve our workplace. And that's the model I would want us, and the mindset I would want us to take, that we have now the OSH as a fundamental right. Now, for us to be able to promote it in Kenya, what can the employer do? What is going to be their role? And what will be the role of the government? What will be the role of the workers? So that all of us can play our respective roles to promote it. If we do that, then we are going to move ahead. The second thing is to realize that OSH, the safeness of a workplace is an obligation of all of us. No workplace can be safe if, no matter what kind of equipment, what kind of safety provisions, and what kind of policies the government puts in place, or the employer puts in place, or systems, it cannot be safe if the worker and the employer and the government, each one of them is not playing their role. All of us has to be there. The third thing, and the last thing that is important for us, is that we should look more at how do we prevent the undesirable incidences to occur, whether it is an incidence of mental health, whether it is an incidence of injury to occur, more than on the compensation. The compensation should only be for the exceptional circumstances where it in the beyond our control and it happened. But more of the system, more of the discussion, more of our effort should be what can we do to prevent our workplaces from becoming unsafe.
All right, thank you very much. And in the interest of time, I'll just ask Dr. Nyandusi to just speak on behalf of, from the government's standpoint, because we have run out of time. Tomorrow is the World Day for Safety and Health at the Workplace. Is it just a day we are marking for the sake of checking a box, or what should we expect?
Thank you, Dan. Tomorrow, Kenya joins the rest of the world in celebrating the World Day for Safety and Health. And on this day, we actually commemorate the workers who have been injured and those who have died in the course of work. And we put impetus upon ourselves to relook at the workplace and improve the safety and health conditions in the workplace. I mentioned before that we do have the continuing dialogue, and as you notice in the panel, we have the representation of government workers and employers. And specifically talking about the entrenchment of the safety and health as a fundamental principle and right, this continued engagement with workers, government, and employers must continue in order for us to deepen safety and health. Safety and health is a concerted effort of all the tripartite parties in order to be realized in the workplace. But the most important issue is that one must constantly think about their own safety. Today we are at the Tomboya Labor College. It's quite instructive that this is where we are in an actual labor college, and we're going to be celebrating tomorrow the Day for Safety and Health. And we do have the Cabinet Secretary responsible for labor and social protection who will be coming. The Principal Secretary responsible for labor and skills development will also be coming, as well as our representative from the workers and our representatives from employers. We must continue thinking about the informal sector and how we are going to deepen safety and health, and continue investing in safety and health in the informal sector, even as we deepen what we have in the formal sector. We've had a lot of discussion about mental health. Indeed, mental health is a scourge of our times, as well as the non-communicable diseases, and each of them can be what we call work-related, even if it's not occupational, which gives it a primary importance in the workplace in terms of productivity and, of course, relevance in the workplace. So I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyandusi, alongside the good ladies and gentlemen on this tripartite panel, which has a representation of government, employers, and the workers. And we thank you for being part of this discussion, just by allowing us to engage on the same. The conversation doesn't have to end here. We could still have more conversations online at our social media platforms at NTV Kenya across the board. So for now, we say good night. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dan Mwangi, but don't go too far. After this short break, Nicholas Wamboshi brings to you the NTV Jioni with the latest in the headlines across the country. Thank you. Good night.